Ladies and gentlemen, there is a strange truth that lives deep beneath the surface of our everyday selves, a truth many never dare to face. We grow up learning that to be attractive is to perfect the exterior. To smile the right way, speak the right words, wear the right mask. But the truth is this: you do not become irresistible by addition. You become irresistible by integration. There is a realm within you, unseen but profoundly felt, where your fears, dreams, desires, and shadows all dwell. This is the unconscious self. And until you make what is unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. But when you turn inward, not to escape the world but to see yourself truly, a transformation begins. Not one that makes you appear perfect, but one that makes you real. And in this world of illusion, realness is rare. Realness is magnetic. Now listen closely. Inside you lies a figure you've disowned. A darker twin. It holds the anger you suppress, the lust you deny, the power you pretend not to crave. This is your shadow. And unless you face it, embrace it, and learn to dance with it, you will never be whole. Only the whole person can command the room in silence. To become truly compelling is not to shine only in light, but to glow in the dark, to carry both heaven and hell inside you without shame. This is where depth is born, and depth is irresistible. And as you walk the long road toward yourself, not the self the world told you to be, but the one you were born to become, you begin to embody something eternal. You no longer mimic charm, You embody an archetype, a pattern of the cosmos made flesh. The lover who feels deeply, the warrior who acts with purpose, the sage who sees beyond the veil. When you do this, people don't just like you, they feel as if they've known you forever. You have touched something eternal in them by first touching it in yourself. And let us not forget, within each man lies a woman, and within each woman a man. To balance these forces is not weakness, it is divinity. The one who has made peace with both becomes neither needy nor cold, but full, harmonized, radiant. And oh yes, radiance is irresistible. So no, you do not become irresistible by seeking validation. You become irresistible by becoming who you truly are. Not a persona, not a role, but a soul, indivisible, integrated, infinite. Thank you. You walk into a room and something happens. Before you speak, before you smile, before a single word crosses your lips, people feel something. They read you without even knowing they are reading. They sense your presence not with logic, but with instinct. It is not your posture or your polish they respond to. It is your depth, or lack of it. What they respond to is your unconscious. Beneath your waking thoughts, beneath your crafted identity, your rehearsed charm, your careful stories, there lives a vast, unseen architecture. It shapes you, drives you, leaks out of your body in gestures, expressions, and tones you don't control. It speaks before you speak. It introduces you long before your voice does. It is the unconscious, the deep reservoir of all that you are but do not yet fully know. This unconscious contains everything you've forgotten, repressed, denied, or never even discovered. It holds the roots of your behavior, the mythic patterns of your life, and the ancient symbols that still haunt your dreams. It remembers what your conscious mind refuses to see, and it leaks through. So, forgive always. When you are unaware of this inner realm, you are fragmented. Your presence is shallow, your energy is erratic, your confidence is a mask waiting to crack. But the moment you begin to understand this subterranean force, to listen to it and let it rise into awareness, you begin to become whole. And wholeness is magnetic. The unconscious does not lie. It does not flatter. It reveals. It whispers through dreams, through symbols, through synchronicities, through those strange feelings that arise when logic fails to explain your reactions. It stirs when you're in love. It tightens when you're afraid. It emerges in your art, in your rage, in the moments when you are most vulnerable or most alive. And here's the paradox. The less you acknowledge it, the more it controls you. You may think you're being confident, but if your unconscious is filled with unresolved shame, others will feel the dissonance. Not consciously, but instinctively. Like animals sensing danger in the wind, people can feel when your energy and your image do not align. You don't even need to speak for that. You may try to charm others with your intellect or your wit, but if your unconscious is riddled with fear, self-betrayal, or wounded pride, those vibrations will find their way into the room. And no amount of cleverness can mask that hum beneath the surface. We like to believe we are in control. But in truth, you are often an actor performing a script written by unseen hands. Childhood wounds, ancestral traumas, archetypal forces, they shape your roles, your attractions, your repulsions, until you know what drives you. You are driven by it. The one who begins to explore their inner depths, not to fix themselves, but to understand, begins to reclaim their power. They become less reactive, more intuitive. They speak less, but say more. They move with a quiet authority that does not shout to be seen, because it knows. The right people will feel it. There is a kind of presence that only arises when the conscious and unconscious begin to speak to one another. A unification of surface and depth, a coherence of soul. And that coherence is what others call charisma or a vibe or energy, but none of those words truly grasp it, because it is not something you perform. It is something you uncover. It is not something you wear. It is something you remember. It is not something you borrow. It is something ancient already within you, waiting to return through the threshold of awareness. There is a part of you that you do not show the world, a part that doesn't smile on cue, a part that burns with jealousy, lust, rage, and ambition, a part that criticizes, mocks, resents, desires, and hungers. You may think you've hidden it well, under politeness, under self-control, under goodness, but it has not disappeared. It waits, in the dark, watching, waiting for the moment you are too tired to pretend. This hidden self is not your enemy, but it is dangerous when ignored. It is what some call the shadow. Not because it is evil, but because it is unseen. You were not born ashamed of it. You were taught to fear it. As a child, perhaps you were told, don't be angry, or that's not nice, or be a good girl, or strong boys don't cry. And so you learned. Some parts of you are acceptable, others must be exiled, and you buried them deep in the unconscious. But what is buried does not die. It festers. It grows teeth, and eventually it begins to act without your permission. The parts of yourself that you reject, those are the very ones that gain control from the shadows. You envy someone's success, and instead of admitting it, you say they're arrogant. You fear your own power, so you admire strength in others, secretly resenting them for possessing what you deny. You see manipulation in others, blind to your own games. The world becomes a mirror for the disowned parts of your psyche. Every person you hate, every person you idolize, is pointing you toward the shadow, but the goal is not to destroy it. The goal is to integrate it. This is the difference between being charming and being magnetic. Charm is performance, a mask, a cultivated image. Magnetism is embodiment, a depth that arises when you no longer divide yourself. The one who integrates their shadow walks into a room with a strange gravity. Not because they are flawless, but because they are whole. They are no longer afraid of their own darkness. You can feel it in them. They are capable of anger, but not ruled by it. Capable of desire, but not enslaved to it. Capable of dominance, but with restraint. These people do not hide from themselves. And because of that, others cannot help but trust them, even without understanding why. When you face your shadow, you reclaim energy that was locked away. The energy it takes to suppress, to deny, to pretend. It drains you. And the more energy you lose, the more lifeless your presence becomes. But when you finally say, yes, that's me too, a weight is lifted, you begin to move differently, speak differently. You become more grounded, more real, more irresistible, not because you are good, but because you are whole. There is also freedom in no longer having to curate every piece of yourself for approval. You realize that what people love most is not your perfection, but your authenticity. And that includes your complexity, your contradictions, your scars. To integrate the shadow is to stand in the center of your being, not tilted toward light or darkness, but rooted in both. From this place, you no longer chase validation. You become sovereign. And this is not a one-time awakening. It is a daily reckoning. Each new level of awareness reveals new layers of shadow, more subtle, more cunning, more disguised. But with each confrontation, more power returns to you. The power of owning what you once feared. The power of presence without pretense. The power of being a complete human, not a sanitized version of one. There is a quiet rebellion taking place within you. A tension between who you think you should be and who you truly are, between the mask you wear for the world and the face you have yet to meet. Most people will never resolve this conflict. They will choose the comfort of belonging over the pain of becoming. But if you are willing to suffer the weight of yourself, all of yourself, then something extraordinary begins to unfold. This unfolding is not self-improvement. It is not becoming better. It is becoming real. It begins the moment you stop asking, "What do they want me to be?" and begin to ask, "What is emerging through me?" The moment you stop performing a role and start listening to the deeper intelligence of your psyche, that voice is faint, drowned out by culture, by conditioning, by the noise of imitation, but it never disappears. It waits. It waits. Individuation is the name for this process, not of acquiring traits, but of reclaiming the ones you buried to survive. It is not about fitting in. It is about standing out, not by force, but by nature. It is the return to the pattern that was always yours, long before you learned how to behave. The world doesn't need more versions of what already exists. It doesn't need another imitation of success, another recycled identity, another echo of someone else's voice. What draws people in, what commands attention without trying, is authenticity. Not the kind that is loud or branded or curated, but the kind that is lived quietly, relentlessly from within. But this is not the easy path. The path of individuation often begins with a kind of disorientation. You realize the life you've built may not be the one you truly want. The relationships you've formed may not see who you are. The goals you've chased may not reflect your soul's direction. This rupture is necessary. It is the death of the false self, the persona, that mask stitched together from childhood wounds, social roles, and unconscious agreements. As the persona crumbles, you are left exposed, raw, undefined. This is where many turn back, because to walk without a mask feels like death. But it is, in truth, the beginning of life. As you move further into this process, something ancient stirs. Not ambition, not image, but essence. The pieces of you that were forgotten in your quest to be accepted begin to return. The voice you silenced begins to speak again, and you begin to shape yourself not according to the external world, but according to the internal blueprint you carried all along. And it is here that your presence changes, not because you are trying to be different, but because you are no longer trying to be the same. People notice it, but they cannot name it. You feel grounded, certain, even in uncertainty. Your words carry weight because they come from the core. You are no longer trying to be interesting, you are interested. No longer trying to impress, you are expressing. There is something unmistakable about a person who has made peace with who they are becoming. They are no longer available for pretense. They are no longer chasing mirrors. They are walking towards something deeper than approval, alignment. In a world of noise, such a person is silent thunder. In a world of masks, such a person is a mirror. In a world obsessed with appearance, such a person reveals the power of essence. They may not be the loudest in the room, but when they speak, people listen, not because of what they say, but because of where the words are coming from, beneath the surface of your personality, deeper than your habits, your preferences, even your memories. There are patterns older than you. Ancient structures, universal blueprints. They are not yours alone. They belong to everyone, and yet they live in you uniquely. These are not roles you invented, but forces that shape the way your life unfolds. They are not created by the individual. They create the individual. These are the archetypes, primordial images embedded in the collective psyche, expressions of the great themes of human existence. And whether or not you are aware of them, they are moving within you, influencing what you desire, what you fear, who you admire, who you reject, and how you present yourself to the world. When someone walks into a room and you feel something stir before they even speak, it is not their appearance alone that moves you. It is the archetype they carry. They have become a vessel for something greater than themselves. You don't just see them. You sense the myth they are living. The lover, the warrior, the sage, the king, the mother, the rebel. These are not characters in a story. They are stories that live in you. Each one is a fragment of the great human narrative. They are not costumes to wear, but psychic forces to awaken. And when you activate them consciously, you don't become artificial. They are not trying to be attractive. They are simply open to beauty, to connection, to emotion. And this openness is felt immediately as aliveness. The one who embodies the warrior does not posture. Their strength is not noise, but precision, discipline, direction, discipline, direction. They do not seek conflict, but they do not avoid it. Their very presence speaks of boundaries, of purpose, of self-respect. They do not dominate, but they cannot be dominated. The sage is not the loudest voice, but often the one you remember. Their words carry weight not because they know everything, but because they have seen deeply. They are guided not by opinion, but by insight. They are not above the world, but rooted in it. Calmly, consciously, attentively. The archetypes are not static. They are fluid, dynamic, contextual. They emerge in you when the time is right, or they stay dormant, waiting for you to call them forth. And if you do not live them consciously, they will live you unconsciously. You will over-identify with one, suppress another, and find yourself in imbalance. To be irresistible is not to fix yourself into a single image, but to become multidimensional. To move between archetypes as the moment requires. To embody the right energy, not perform it. People can feel the difference. They know when you are trying to act powerful versus when power simply moves through you. They know when you are pretending to care versus when care is your natural presence. These archetypes are not ideas. They are experiences. When they are alive in you, others feel it. The right archetype at the right moment resonates like a tuning fork. It speaks to something deep in others. Something wordless. Something ancestral. It bypasses intellect and touches instinct. It doesn't ask for attention. It commands recognition without demand. When you stand in an archetype, you are no longer trying to connect. You already are the connection. You are no longer trying to be seen. You have become the mirror in which others see a forgotten part of themselves. You no longer chase approval. You embody a presence that does not ask for permission to exist certainly. Below is an expanded version of point 5. The dance between masculine and feminine energies in a deeply reflective, symbolic, and psychologically rich tone inspired by Jung's approach to the anima and animus. It's approximately 600 words with no concluding sentence as you requested. The dance between masculine and feminine energies expanded 600 words. Within every individual, regardless of gender, there are two fundamental forces constantly at play. Not opposites, but complements. One is focused, directed, clear like a sword cutting through fog. The other is receptive, fluid, nurturing like a river weaving its way through earth. These forces do not belong to biology. They belong to the psyche. They are not assigned at birth. They emerge from deep within. One is masculine, one is feminine, one is feminine. And together, they form the architecture of wholeness. Culture may reward one and suppress the other. Families may teach you to trust one and fear the other, but your inner world knows both. Your soul was never meant to be singular. It is dual by design. It is not in choosing one and rejecting the other that you evolve, but in learning to balance and integrate both, to let them speak to each other, to let them dance. The masculine energy within you is the part that moves forward, acts decisively, speaks with authority, builds structure, creates order. It seeks clarity. It longs for direction. It protects. It penetrates. It defines. It says, here is the goal. Let us move. The feminine energy is the part that waits, listens, opens, feels, intuits, nurtures. It holds space. It creates beauty. It does not demand answers. It receives what is. It is the fertile soil where the seed of the masculine takes root. It says, be still. Let us feel. Most people live lopsided. One side dominant, the other exiled. And so they become incomplete. The overly masculine become rigid, cold, obsessed with control. They lose touch with softness, emotion, intimacy. The overly feminine become chaotic, directionless, afraid of boundaries. They drift, endlessly feeling, but never choosing. But the one who integrates both does not collapse into these extremes. They are not either or. They are both, and they act with strength and listen with softness. They set direction and allow detours. They lead and they receive. They are fierce and tender, bold and still, structured and spontaneous. And this harmony is not just attractive, it is magnetic. When you witness someone who holds this inner balance, you feel it immediately. They are not confused. They are not trying to prove anything. They are rooted in themselves. They do not perform masculinity or femininity. They are an embodiment of both, each called forth in the right moment. You sense that they can protect and also hold you, that they can challenge and also accept you, that they can move forward with vision and also pause with presence. You cannot fake this kind of energy. It comes from deep psychological work, from meeting the parts of yourself you were taught to suppress. If you identify strongly with your masculinity, then your feminine may appear in dreams, fantasies, or projections as the mysterious, alluring, terrifying force you don't understand. She will pull you inward, asking you to feel, to surrender, to soften, not to weaken, but to deepen. If you identify with your femininity, then your inner masculine will call you to choose, to assert, to act with conviction. Not to harden, but to define. This is not about gender roles or social norms. It is about psychic truth. When these energies are in harmony, you begin to move through life with a strange elegance. You do not chase. You attract. You do not dominate. You radiate. Your presence becomes a paradox, calm yet powerful, mysterious yet grounded, inviting yet untouchable, and others feel it. Without knowing why, they are drawn in. Not to what you say or do, but to the quality of your being, that subtle balance between giving and receiving, between clarity and compassion, between movement and stillness. You no longer seek completion in others because you have found it within yourself.